Greetings, back with another one. Now I got this article with Game Rant, and it says that on August 26th is going to be the end of an era for PlayStation and Xbox. Now, initially, when I hear that, I'm thinking, the worst. I don't. But the only thing I could come up with, maybe they're talking about that. I guess they're doing away with the console war concept. Now, when like I said, I've been playing games since the early '90s. So I remember when I was playing the Sega Genesis and stuff like that, and the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and PS1. Maybe I was too young, but I don't remember ever hearing about conversations about the console wars and stuff like that. I didn't really hear about that stuff until PS2, probably around PS2 and the original Xbox in time. Pretty much when the original Xbox came out, that's when I started hearing about it. I guess because I was older and started hearing that stuff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted I just stumbled across this, and I was just fascinated with the with the title. So let's get into it. It says on August 26th, PlayStation will be publishing Helldivers on Xbox, Helldivers 2, excuse me, on Xbox Series X and S, while Xbox is publishing Gears of War Reloaded on PS5 the same day. Ever since the original Xbox hit the scene in the early 2000s, Microsoft and Sony have competed in the console market. The PS2 trounced the original Xbox, while the Xbox 360 dominated the PS3 for much of their generation. Eventually, PlayStation's consoles came out on top, with the PS3 selling 87.4 million units compared to roughly 84 million sold by the Xbox 360. Since then, PlayStation consoles have comfortably outpaced the sales of Xbox consoles, with the PlayStation 4 vastly outselling the Xbox One and the PS5 far ahead of the Xbox Series X. Instead of continuing the console wars, and there it goes. By securing more exclusive games, Xbox has decided to start publishing some of its biggest titles on PlayStation 5. Excuse me. And like I said, I think that's the smartest thing that Microsoft can do to kind of like open their, I guess you could say, open their market to PlayStation players, because as it said, Sony is kicking their butts right now, and Nintendo seems to kind of does its own thing, but they're always kind of doing well. But yeah, I just think that's a smart move for Microsoft to do, and I think Gears of War Reloaded is going to be out pretty soon. I'm sure I'll probably make a video talking about that. But yeah, yeah. Continue. No, I'm just going to keep reading, and then I'll go further. Forza Horizon 5 was a massive success on PS5, and many more Xbox games are on the way for the platform. PlayStation, on the other hand, hasn't really bothered to bring its games to Xbox outside of when it's been forced to. Yeah, because they don't really need to. I mean, that's the one thing that PlayStation always kind of had, at least as far as the games that I played. PlayStation always kind of had an advantage over Xbox when it comes to exclusives. Like I say this all the time. The only exclusive that I really know for Xbox, well, just until a few months ago when Gears was going to be announced to be on both consoles. But Gears and Halo were like the two biggest exclusives that I really knew on the Xbox. I can't remember most of them. I just can't. But with Sony, it's a completely different ball game. You have a lot of single player adventure games that only comes out for Sony. I very much doubt that Ghost of Yote is going to be on the Xbox. I very much doubt that Sony will do that. Who knows? But yeah, like I said, like I said, Microsoft pretty much is up against the rope. So Sony has the the advantage with that. I'll continue. Like with the MLB The Show series, but the time is coming to an end. PlayStation is bringing Helldivers 2 to Xbox on August 26th, marking a dramatic shift in the company's policy and strategies. That same day, PlayStation gamers will get to play their first ever Gears of War game when the Gears of War Reloaded lands on PlayStation 5. Clearly, PlayStation and Xbox aren't nearly as interested in the console wars as they were in the past. This marks the end of an era for the PlayStation, Xbox, and the industry at large. With August 26th, that day, the day that the biggest hole was made in the walls that separated the, the competing platforms. It says Helldivers 2 is coming to the Xbox the same day the Gears of War Reloaded PS5. We know Xbox is all in on bringing the games to other platforms, but chances are this is just the beginning of PlayStation doing the same. If Helldivers 2 is a success on Xbox, PlayStation will no doubt be tempted to bring more of its games to the platform, though time will tell what games ultimately make the jump. Single player PlayStation games will most likely remain exclusive, as they should, because the console war concept may be kind of on its way out, but I believe that these consoles should maintain some sort of identity, if that makes any sense, because if all of these IPs are going to just be on all of the consoles, then what's the point of making different consoles? I mean that's like Nintendo putting Mario and Zelda games, on Microsoft and Sony, which Nintendo I will never do. I doubt they'll ever do that. So when it comes to the identity, I would say Nintendo is really, really on top when it comes to just identity, because they don't really share. I mean, like I said, you might have, a IP that's on all three consoles, but Nintendo, when you think Nintendo, you think Mario, you think, Zelda and Donkey Kong and Metroid and Star Fox and stuff like that. Like you would never see those games on the other consoles, I don't think. But they'll probably share a game like Mortal Kombat or some sort of sports game or some sort of shooter or fighter or something like that. But Nintendo has their exclusive, and as do PlayStation too. But it just seems that Sony and Microsoft, they kind of share IPs going back and forth, back and forth. You rarely see it on Nintendo. That's probably why they don't mention Nintendo in this though. But yeah, I mean, it seems that the console war concept is going away. It kind of already did. Really, people don't really talk about it anymore. But like I said, Gears of War is a big one though. I mean, for that to be on PlayStation, that is a big one. So like that's really Microsoft saying, like, we don't care anymore. We're already on the ropes. So let's just, try to bring in more people. Where am I? But it wouldn't be surprised at all to see the company's more multiplayer focused titles eventually jump ship. Exactly. Because everything is like crossplay now, which is fine. But I think Steam is kind of kicking everybody's butt. I think Steam is probably where most gamers are now. I think Steam probably has the most that probably has the highest player base, user base, whatever you want to call it. It might get to a point where console may just go away. I mean that would be a sad day because I've always been a console guy. Like I said, the PC that I'm using now is actually a gaming PC. I haven't tested out its strength yet, but I keep procrastinating, saying that I'm gonna get Steam and just to try it and stuff like that, and give me like an arcade pad or something just to try it out. But yeah, I think Steam is probably has the highest player base. Correct me if I'm wrong about it, but I think a lot of people going on Steam though. Continue. Recent PlayStation job listings certainly point in the direction of the company porting more of its games to competing platforms. PlayStation has already brought many of its big games to PC, and so who's to say that those games won't come to Xbox at the same point down the line as well? While the latest PlayStation console will likely remain the only way to play most of the company's exclusives on the day of their release, we could very well be headed to the future where pure console exclusives are effectively a thing of the past for both PlayStation and Xbox. And again, that's one thing that I don't want to see, because like I said, you gotta have your identity. You gotta have something that separates you from everybody else. Nintendo does have that. So I think PlayStation to me is going to be, between these two consoles, I would say PlayStation is probably going to be the console where you can have those single player adventure-based games like a God of War or Horizon, or I doubt that they'll make any more Uncharted games or stuff like that. I mean, Tomb Raider used to be an exclusive on PlayStation, and then I think probably at the 360 time, and then I think they started putting Tomb Raider games on Xbox. But PlayStation still has their identity when it comes to that. Those very, very story-based adventure single mode games like that. And Xbox kind of like it kind of like when Xbox first came out, I kind of got some Dreamcast vibes from it in terms of just the multiplayer thing. I mean, Dreamcast was it had 4 ports. You could play 4 players on the Dreamcast, even though it was more of an arcadey console. But when when the original Xbox came out, Halo was big and all that stuff, and it had a lot of shooters and stuff like that, and then that's when multiplayer really started blowing up and stuff like that. So I kind of got that initially, and Xbox is been going strong as it could, and now with this Game Pass thing, that's kind of Microsoft's bread and butter right now. But like I said, I just think over the years it's just Xbox their exclusive focus has kind of dwindled, and it's Halo is kind of not the juggernaut that it used to be, and I don't even know I don't even know who's even in charge of the Halo brand anymore. And I mean, I'm sure it's still exclusively for Xbox, but Gears was another juggernaut, and now they're going to be on PlayStation as well. I mean, it helps TC and it helps Microsoft, but as far as the exclusive identity, Xbox by far will lose that identity before PlayStation will by far. And because just like I said earlier, PlayStation is not really on the ropes, Xbox is. So, but yeah, man, I mean, I'm particularly just excited for the whole Gears of War thing, because I got buddies who on PlayStation, and like I said, by the time I get a PS5, the PS9 gonna be out by the time I get one. But yeah, it really, I mean, I guess you could say it really is an end of an era, especially if you're, around my age, you've been playing, video games since the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, I guess you could say it is the end of an era, but as long as, if you're a gamer, I mean, you're going to find any excuse to play games. Doesn't matter where it is, if it's, PlayStation or Xbox, Nintendo, PC. I think Sega might be making a comeback. I hope so. Sega, that's my top three. I love Sega. It was just so many memories, man. But I just wanted to talk about this, man, because this, and I wouldn't say that this will put anybody in a somber mood unless you're somebody who's heavily enthusiastic about this console war thing. But at the end of the day, I'm a gamer, you're a gamer, we're all gamers, man. It really doesn't matter, which which platform you choose to partake. As long as you play what you like, and like I said, just do you, man. That's all I gotta say, man. But yeah, man, another one for the archives. 31 Cent Adage. It's your brother Bleak signing out. Until next time, you guys. Us.